Hello and welcome back to the next video in the Claude Cowork for Beginners Made Easy course. Now we're going to look at creating professional documents with Claude Cowork, just to show you that it can create Word files, PDF files, spreadsheets, or PowerPoint presentations, and even more for you, just based on your clear and detailed, or even not so detailed instruction. So we are going to look at Word files like reports, letters, or proposals, PowerPoint presentations, slide decks, Excel files like spreadsheets, budgets, and analysis, or PDF files like finished documents and archives. Instead of creating those files yourself and then having Cowork work on that, which is what you could do, many cases when you start a new document and you have some ideas about it, you can just tell Cowork to start it for you. You might still have to optimize it, but you can get Cowork to do, I would say, the lion's share of the task. So, when you think about telling Cowork a document or a file that you want, right? If you're requesting a document, there's three things that you should be thinking about as you prompt Cowork. The first one is, of course, what do you want Cowork to do, right? What do you want it to create for you? Now, one example would be create a monthly budget spreadsheet, right? That is already pretty good context because we say it's monthly, we know it's a spreadsheet, and that it's kind of based on budget. So that will help Cowork to already know roughly what those things should look like, what that file should look like. The second part is how should it go about creating it, right? So think about, for example, format as a table, include a summary row, and highlight the totals, right? So how to do it is usually you're going to tell it a lot about the structure or the layout and the formatting of that file. And the third aspect is what to deliver, right? So part of that is the file name, but it could include additional information about the structure of the file. Maybe if you have a spreadsheet, you want it to have a certain number of sheets that have certain names, or you have a PowerPoint presentation and then you say, deliver me an 8 slide overview, right? So it could be the number of pages, a number of slides. But those three things you should really keep in mind so that you give clear instructions to Cowork and that you really get what you're looking for. But then again, of course, you can always iterate. So if you get the first output, it could give you an idea of what you want, and then you can just tell it to revise it. Now, an important tip is, or what I've seen is, there's a temptation to micromanage Cowork, which is understandable since you're handing tasks to a AI tool, an AI agent, and especially in the beginning, you might not have to trust how good it is. But the fact is, most likely, you're going to be shocked just how good it is. And while you should give clear instructions as to what you want, you don't need to micromanage it. So for spreadsheets, for example, a good rule of thumb is that you don't need to tell it the formulas, right? You tell it the goals, and that applies to any kind of document. You should give clear goals, but you don't need to go into all of the details, like it can fill in the blank, so to speak, right? The wrong approach would be to say in D1, put equals sum A1 to A10, format as currency, right? Just say create a budget spreadsheet, show total expenses in a summary row, format amounts as currency. So it knows all of the formulas. It probably knows more formulas certainly than I do, probably more than you do, right? Like it has been trained on so much, so it will know what formulas to pick as long as the goals are clear. So first of all, here's just a few sample prompts, right? You could use them in your company if you have clarified that you can use Claude Cowork and that data can be used within Claude Cowork. And once that is clear, here's just a few examples of what you could use Cowork for to save you lifetime. Let's say you want to create a Word report, right? Create a quarterly business report for Q1 2024, include an executive summary, key metrics table, revenue, expenses, growth rate, market analysis section, and 3 recommendations. Use professional formatting with headers, page numbers, and a table of contents. Right. I mean, there's 2 more examples, and I won't take the time to read all of them through it. I invite you to stop the video, have a look at these prompts, right? But again, you can give it very clear instructions and you can build very long and detailed files. Like Cowork in one session can give you 5, 6, 7,000 word reports. It could even write reports up to 20,000 words if you give it enough time and you have a big enough token subscription, like the max tier, right? So don't underestimate what it can deliver for you. But your job, right, as more and more you don't have to spend the time creating all of these files and researching everything. The real task now is that you think about clearly what it is that you want and how you can spell it out in a prompt to clearly ask for what it is that you want. Right, again, stop the video, you can look at these prompts. In the next one, I will give you 3 examples of external research, so things that you can basically always do, that you can definitely do, even if using company data is not allowed with Claude Cowork, which could happen for, of course, various reasons. Right, and just a reminder again, remember the prompts use the core framework, context, outcome requirements, and examples, right? Those are the 4 that we talked about earlier. So because I wanted to give you a live demo, right, what kind of use cases you can have, these are with, you don't need company files. My invitation to you is, I will show you now what Claude Cowork has produced for me with these prompts. But just to get started for these use cases, I invite you to do the same, right? Just copy and paste or type this prompt into your Cowork and see what kind of result it gets you, right? One use case would be a web research report. Cowork goes out, researches on the internet, summarizes all of it in a Word file or a PDF file for you. You could analyze competitors, right? That could be social media profiles, like a YouTube competitor analysis, and then have those insights summarized into an Excel spreadsheet for you, and an additional summary for it. Or, of course, you could let it research, for example, trends and market developments, and then summarize all of that into a presentation, a PowerPoint file, and you could even give it instructions about what the format should look like, maybe what color scheme, and you can also tell it the number of slides you want to have, and it will create that for you, right? So before I show you what those prompts delivered, Cowork can research, analyze, and create documents, and all of that in one prompt, right? So you don't even need to sit there the whole time. You think about a great first prompt, and then you can just lean back or do something else for the next 10 minutes. Or, of course, you could do all of those 3 tasks at once, because you can have multiple Cowork tasks at once. And then you can come back 10, 15 minutes later, your report will be ready. And if it doesn't fully work, then of course you can just tell it to revise it and to improve it. But that's really what you need to do. So let's go and see what those delivered. So I'm just gonna change here, and I've already run these tasks earlier. So research the top 5 AI trends for 2026, find information from major tech, and so on. All right. Now, in some cases, you need to answer a few questions to Cowork, which really wants to help you produce the most relevant content. And it might ask you for things here like, okay, what is the intended audience? Say business executives. And now we will have to wait a little bit until this one is finished. Let's see what we have here. Right, search the web for 3 recent articles about future of remote work, summarize the key points from each article, identify the common themes. Now, what did it create for us? Here we have a Word file. Sometimes the preview works, sometimes it doesn't. Otherwise, we just open the Word file. All right, this seems to, yes, it's working. Okay, so here is a file, a report that Claude Cowork just created for me here. And here we go, right? So that's an overview, that's a summary, right? I told it should be around 500 words. It synthesizes it. We have the links at the end, right? Let's just open it in a Word as well. There's the file, there's the links. I can click them. The links are working. It's great stuff. And of course, it's also just a very good overview here. So it's really nice to look at. Okay. Now, there's the third one. So you can close that here. Then I go here, research remote work trends. Research the current state of remote work in 2025, find statistics from at least 5 different sources, right? So here we wanted to have a PowerPoint presentation. If you want, of course, you can stop the video and just look at the process it was working through here. But I'll just look at the final result now. So look at this. This is interesting, an interesting template. Obviously, I didn't even give it instructions about the template, right? If you have company colors, color schemes, then that would be part of your prompt. But overall, this looks like a very good presentation here. At least, right, we even have graphics. Those are very nice to look at. So it's a good overview. It's consistent in terms of the design. Now, obviously, I would have to verify the information, but of course, most of the time it does a great job on that. Here we have some charts. Here's a summary. There's another chart. All right. And then there's kind of looking for future. The sources mentioned. This is a really great summary, right? And the format remains similar. So it's kind of even a great template that's used. I like this. Right. So those are just some examples of the kind of files that you can use, you can create with Claude Cowork on first try, right? You could even improve it later, tell it a different color scheme, a different structure. Let me just see the other use case we had. Okay, so a few minutes later, here's the result of the report, the top 5 AI trends for 2026, written for business executives, like it has asked us about the research group, the target reader. We have sources listed, right? So those are all very take sources in the business context. And again, you see that the formatting is pretty nice. Here's the executive summary, right? We asked for an executive summary, a comparison table, summary, sources, notable disagreements, sources, how they agree and disagree. So we have a good overview here. Yeah. And then there's a detail analysis. I didn't even necessarily ask for this, but we get a very good, well-structured overview. Again, now you can stop the video and look at this in more detail, but this is a great report. And of course, you could open it in Word, you could change the formatting, you could change the layout, but you have something great to work with here and to start. All right, there's the sources. That's also good. Okay, I could have asked for links to these sources. That might be even more useful, but I could still do that in a second run. All right, so my invitation to you is take at least one of these prompts, go into your Cowork now, type them in, and then wait for the report and have a look at it and just experience what it is like creating files with Claude Cowork that are already well structured and in accordance to color schemes or layouts that you can define. And yeah, get started using Cowork for file creation. Now, keep in mind, of course, when you do this, you create a new task. And in that task, first, you have to pick the folder in which Cowork will work, because when it's creating those files, it needs to store them, of course, in a folder that it has access to. So that's the first step you take when you start a new task. Right. So, again, I mean, it's an estimate how much time we would have taken manually if we did those tasks, right? But whether you save 10, 20, 30 minutes or hours, right, depending on how complex your task is, your analysis, or whatever you create, I think you've just seen how much Cowork can do for you. And it's not even enough, right? Because you can run a much more complex multi-step workflow, give that to Cowork, and maybe 20, 30 minutes later you come back and you have Word file, PDF file, and spreadsheets that are all on topic, and all of them are created for you. And that's something we're going to look at in one of the next videos. A short Additional tip is that you can save templates to save time, right? So if you have a prompt that worked really well, you should probably save it in your notes somewhere so you can come back to it later and run it again. And as we're also going to look at using the schedule tasks feature, you could schedule those tasks to be run every day, every week, every month at a certain time. Or, of course, you can create a template that you ask Claude to fill in so that the output structure will always be the same. That's kind of a pro tip, right? And in the next video, we will look one more time at how Claude Cowork can sort through and categorize all of the files in your downloads folder for you, and how you can organize files at scale.